Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Thank you kindly for stopping by. Washington National Cathedral for the Bush funeral. This is a photograph from CNN. President Trump, First Lady Melania Trump, former President Obama, First Lady Michelle Obama, former President Clinton, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, former President Jimmy Carter, First Lady Rosalind Carter seated at the Washington National Cathedral for the Bush funeral. And I tweeted Paul Ekman, what do the faces reveal? Because they're clearly revealing a lot, aren't they? Particularly Trump's. And this is the photograph from the Associated Press of George H.W. Bush lying in state. Badra Punchline, who I follow avidly, real Donald Trump's fawning over Saudi ties backfires. The G20 is an economic club and it has traditionally stuck to that groove. Saudi Arabia has traditionally been represented at G20 events by government ministers, usually the oil minister. But this time around, the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who is just a heartbeat away from becoming the King of Saudi Arabia, showed up. By doing so, Riyadh was pushing the envelope. It was insisting that the international community had better come to terms with the reality that MBS is the prince who counts in the House of Saud and should learn to deal with him as their principal interlocutor. No doubt this was also a calculated signal that in Riyadh's estimation, MBS has weathered the Jamal Khashoggi storm. Of course, the G20 picture that became viral was the high five between MBS and Russian President Vladimir Putin, with President Trump in the backdrop watching with a worried look. The Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov later explained that good personal relations are the basis for effective bilateral cooperation. In fact, Putin and MBS also had a productive bilateral meeting on the sidelines of the G20 on December 1st. Putin later disclosed that the two countries have agreed to extend into 2018 their deal to manage the oil market known as OPEC+, Putin told reporters. There is no final decision on volumes, but together with Saudi Arabia we will do it, and whatever number there will be, based on this joint decision, we agreed that we will monitor the market situation and react to it quickly. Just look at the great irony of it. The Western powers dial back their criticism of Saudi Arabia, taking care not to annoy the Saudi crown prince, lest vital economic and geostrategic interests are affected. And yet MBS finalizes with Putin the state of play in the oil market through 2019, which would critically impact the Western economies. Implicit in this is also a gentle warning to Trump that Saudi Arabia is not beholden to him. And what is at work is a marriage of convenience. Says this may not turn out to be a big gambit. Trouble is brewing in Congress. But basically saying that Trump's fawning over Saudi Arabia, despite the compelling evidence of MBS's complicity in Khashoggi's murder, has backfired. My piece over the weekend was G20 and the global economy. I said the optics were off the charts. It was Netflix-level cinema. Putin, fresh off his Kerch Strait interdiction, high-fived the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. In the audio, it is possible to make out the prince saying, "Don't worry." To which Emmanuel Macron responds, "I'm worried." "Don't worry, Macron, I do worry. I am worried." Indeed, aren't we all? Piece on the 15th of October was "War is Coming." This is reiterated by Asia Times Online. There is a coterie of advisors in and around the Trump administration that appeared to believe that the trade war would damage China's economy so severely as to destabilize the rule of Xi Jinping. Trump and Xi made progress at the G20, but are the US and China still destined for war, asks SCMP News, talking about the Thucydides trap in the history of the Peloponnesian War. It was the rise of Athens and the fear that this installed in Sparta that made war inevitable. Luckily, the battleground is not yet in military fields, but conflicts are clearly rising in trade, investment, technology, whose impacts will continue to manifest in economic and market terms in the coming years. For now, the G20 outcome has not fundamentally changed our view on the US-China economic tussle and its impact. The shifting effect of the trade war from a market shock to a growth shock is the key driver of the economic slowdown expected for China in 2019. The base case remains that the tariff rate will eventually rise to 25%, covering $250 billion in Chinese goods, although the odds of non-escalation with levies staying at their current levels have risen after last week's meeting. Forget it. Huawei's CFO Meng Wanzhou facing extradition to the US after arrest in Canada. She's the daughter of the company founder, has been detained in Vancouver in relation to suspected violations by Huawei of US sanctions placed on Iran. Australia barred Huawei from providing 5G technology for its wireless networks over the summer. New Zealand followed suit in November. BT announced it would be removing Huawei manufactured equipment from its 3G and 4G mobile networks. This is a key problem for Africa, and it seems the fault line there is very clear. Huawei have been a big supporter of African telecoms. Trump's aggressive, coercive foreign economic policy is the signature success of his administration, I said a while ago. Economic, financial, technological, and geopolitical Cold War between US and China is in full swing. G20 trade truce already fizzling out. Expect an escalation of the Cold War. That's Muriel. As I said in July, tariff wars, who blinks first? And have a look at this from UNCTAD. Goods worth $526 billion were imported by the US from China. Goods worth $154 billion traveled in the opposite direction. That's why Trump has the upper hand, because of the numbers. Iraqi marchers don yellow vests after Paris riots. You see them chanting slogans in front of Basra's provincial council building. Took me back to something I was remembering Malcolm Gladwell. Look at the world around you. It may seem like an immovable, implacable place. It is not. With the slightest push in just the right place, it can be tipped. And why I was going back to that was because if you think of it, of Paris and then Basra, to create one contagious movement, you often have to create many small movements first. Look at the world around you. It may seem like an immovable, implacable place. It is not. With the slightest push in just the right place, it can be tipped. This photo is from the protests in Paris, so perfectly encapsulates our current world. I thought it was staged. Andrew Steinwald. Interesting report I came across. The Saudis and UAE bribed Sudan's president to send Janjaweed fighters to be cannon fodder in Yemen. It's not working out. Put simply, recent US intelligence assessments confirm what Al-Amin has reported, that the UAE-Saudi war in Yemen is going to unravel. Not only are the Emiratis and Saudis mired in a seemingly endless conflict, their 8,000 plus Sudanese mercenaries are beginning to turn on their Emirati and Saudi officers. This is the result of Saudi penny pinching and the fact that UAE Saudi commanders regularly and knowingly order the Sudanese units into virtual suicide missions against the Houthi rebels. According to Middle East Eye, upwards of 500 Sudanese soldiers have died in the conflict. These guys are cannon fodder for the Saudis and they know it. This is Michael Horton. The result has been a number of incidents in which Sudanese soldiers have murdered their UAE or Saudi commanders, what Horton described as a nasty piece of business. And then talking about the background to this and the assumption that Omar al-Bashir was the big winner, but it turns out that this deal with Saudi Arabia was actually brokered by his head of intelligence services, Taha Osman al-Hussein. Read the article, the link is on Rich Wrap-Ups. And I take you back to November when I wrote that the then 30-year-old Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia arrived on the scene and immediately launched an unwinnable war. It's not winnable, this war in Yemen. Facebook discussed cashing in on user data. Emails suggest, this is a report in The Guardian. Carol Cadwalla, We've never sold users data, never sold it, no, but traded it, exchanged it, and gave it to certain favoured apps for certain favoured reasons. Docs released by Parliament reveal murky world of data broking, data leaking, and data trading. And I was touching on this in March when I said sell Facebook. I said the fundamental challenge for Facebook is this: it has represented itself as an intermediary, but it's been hawking our information as if it were an intermediary, and this is its trust gap. An intermediary works as a personal agent on behalf of consumers to help them take control over information gathered about them. The concept of the intermediary was first suggested by John Hagel III in his book Net Worth. And I was saying Facebook has been hawking this information as if it were an intermediary, and this is its trust gap. And that gap is set to widen further. And I said it's facing an existentialist crisis.